Good morning, happy Friday, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, Positively Uncensored. In case you are listening to this episode back on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, this is a live episode. In case you are already live on YouTube or you are with me and the viewers, I'm live early. I'm live like 30 minutes early, but I wanted to jump on. I'm sitting at my computer, and anybody who creates content or has to look at themselves on a computer knows the feeling of if you stare at yourself too long, you'll almost convince yourself that you don't want to do anything. And that's exactly how I was feeling. So I was like, you know what? Let me just jump into it. I'm going to be talking about Love is Blind season 10, which is in Ohio, my home state. I'm going to be reviewing episodes 1 through 6. But as I give people some time to hop on here, I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Traitors. Cross season 2 came out this week on Amazon Prime. I loved season 1, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that as people log on. And then I'm just going to dive right into season 10. So, first of all, if you are sitting in the viewers, make sure that you like this video, type something in the comments just so that other people know that I'm on because I am on a bit early. Also, hello. I feel like I have not been live on YouTube in forever. I've been missing you guys. Once you get out of the groove of going live, it takes a second to like get back in the swing of things, but I've missed talking with you guys and I thought what a better time to go live than during Love is Blind. I haven't seen all the episodes, but I'm cool with spoilers. I love the podcast. Thank you so much for typing in the comments, Emerald. And I am so excited to spoil some of the show for you. I'm one of those people too, where sometimes I want no spoilers at all, especially if it's a show like The Bachelorette and people are putting spoilers out in advance of the entire season. But I'm one of those people who enjoys hearing other people's commentary, even if I haven't watched the episodes before as well. Let's talk about Traitors. Last night's episode of Traitors was so annoying. And I'm like, am I the problem? Because I feel like I run into this every single season. Every season, I feel like about the halfway point, maybe 60% of the way through, I feel like we are just we're supposed to suspend too much disbelief. Like they're asking us to assume that everybody in the house is like an idiot. That's how I feel every season around this time in the show. And I sort of resent the fact that they drag the season on for so long. Like they have to get the 12 episodes. They have to get to 12 episodes when I feel like they could show us more and do less of the fluff each episode. Now, again, maybe I'm being a hater. Maybe a lot of people are super excited at the end of the episodes and them leaving us on a cliffhanger for next week. But I just feel like a lot of things they're showing us is just to drag out the show. And you can feel it as you're watching, and it's super frustrating. Next up, because I don't believe that everybody in the house is an idiot, I believe that people are having conversations where they were aware of who the traitors were earlier in the show. And I resent the fact that producers don't show us that. Granted, I don't think that this information will ever come out because it would give away TV magic or producer secrets. But I would love to hear somebody say, oh no, we knew immediately. We knew who it was. We weren't allowed to say who it was. They sent home anybody who had like an actual guess. I just feel like there's no way that people aren't catching on to Rob. And I'm looking in my comments and I'm hearing, thank you for confirming that it just feels very jarring. And I'm not saying that Rob is playing a bad game. And maybe it feels that way because we know that he's a traitor, but he's playing like a very bold game. Like people keep talking about how he flies under the radar. I actually feel like he's taunting them in every single episode. And I feel like the only reason he's getting away with it is because he's an attractive white man that people find charismatic. Is he more of an introvert than other people in the house? And does he have more of a low key energy? Yes, he does. And I'm sure that that helps with going undetected. But he's making bold moves, even like letting people know that he has the dagger, like he has 2 votes at the round table. There's no way in my mind that when Candace left, anybody should have been looking at anybody but Rob. Like, The answer was right there. It's clear. It's traitor on traitor beef, and yet nobody says it. Like, I'm just having a very hard time believing that, and I don't like that they want to play me, the viewer, as an idiot. So that's how I feel about the traitors. Again, I'm not saying that Rob is playing like a bad game, but I think that he's not made as I don't think he's made as great of gameplay as people are making him out to be. I think not looping Candace in was a mistake. I think that the two of them, he could have told her that he's going to send home Lisa Rinna. Some people are like, well, he did warn her that Lisa Rinna was, like drawing attention to them. And I'm like, yeah, that's different than saying that you're going to vote her out that night and that you've been like spreading her name to everybody else. So I think he's made some mistakes along the way. And he is just so bold to think that he has everybody wrapped around his finger. And maybe he does. And that's also infuriating. It looks like I have at least like several people on now. So let's talk about Love is Blind. If you are unfamiliar with Cross, season one was so good. The lead is a black detective. He does great. I think his name, the actor in real life, is Alex Hodges. I might be wrong on that. I'll come back to that if I'm incorrect, but it's great. Season two has the first 3 episodes out, and it really parallels like what's going on right now. I don't want to spoil too much, but like with billionaires and the things that they do and things that high power men are doing in their lives. It's really good. Let's talk Love is Blind. So, season 10, like I said, we're in Ohio, which is my home state. So I was super excited to, first of all, see if I recognized anybody from the cast. Unsurprisingly, I don't recognize anybody, but I can always hope that I will. But it's been really interesting for me to see the different types of personalities like they've chosen to represent Ohio. And I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop because there's certain things that I haven't heard happen yet in conversation that I just know will happen. Aldous Hodge, thank you so much. His name is Alex Cross in the show, and I knew I was messing up the first name. So, season 10, we're in Ohio. And we start out in the pods with Chris. And first of all, I know that in prior seasons, I have asked Love is Blind to show us more of the couple's journeys. And when I said that, what I meant was show us more of the couple's journeys because every season they dangled diversity in front of us and then they would just show us the white couples. So I'm like, you know what? I would rather see the dates that your POC cast members and your Black cast members are having than not see anything of them. And this season, we definitely saw more couples, and thus we did get more diversity. But I still think I'm sorry, I thought I muted that. I still think that it's pretty focused on white couples. And I still think that there was a lot of people whose stories I would have been interested to see versus the people who we are seeing and that they're platforming. Starting with Chris, we see him in the pods. He reads short. I don't know if we've confirmed that he is short yet, but he just looks very short. And he's connecting with Jess. I'm going to try to pull up pictures of people, but no promise that I can keep this up just because I might forget. Okay, so here's Jessica. Jessica and Chris are in the pods talking to each other, and they connect over the fact that he has a cat named Chalupa and she has 2 bulldogs. I was immediately wondering what their politics are because she is a disease specialist, an internist or something. She's a physician that specializes in disease, and she talks about like the responsibility that she had during COVID. And actually, I'm wondering her politics as well because she said she has very strong politics, but it's seeming like she's left leaning. And as she's talking about her very strong beliefs and working at the hospital during COVID, Chris responds and he's like, like that must have been so hard for you listening to a bunch of bullshit from the outside world and then seeing people in the hospital. And I would have think based off that statement that sounds pretty left leaning. But I'm not sure. Like, I'm like, what does he mean by the bullshit from the outside world? Because since they're in Ohio, I know a lot of people didn't believe in COVID. They didn't care about masking protocols. They didn't care about any of it. They kept saying that it was the exact same thing as the flu. So if he's referring to people who were talking like that in Ohio, then absolutely. I would chalk that up to bullshit from the outside world. But if he was referring to the news encouraging people to mask and to not go out and to have small gatherings. Mm, like I'm just really curious what they meant by that, and I also think it's really interesting that through the entirety of these 6 episodes, we never directly hear what somebody's politics are, and again, because I'm from Ohio, there's no way that they didn't have that conversation in the pods. At least one person, at least one guy on the cast brazenly said that he's MAGA and voted for Trump, and probably, like, made others feel badly if they don't feel the same way. Like, there's just no way that that didn't happen at least once. And it's interesting that we haven't seen it and that they're not really showing politics at all when, because I'm from Ohio, I know that people's politics are like a huge part of their personalities there. Some people can claim like, oh, like I don't do politics, but they always do. So, mind you, also to point out about Chris and Jess, Jessica's 39 and Chris was younger. I'm not going to go back to him to see how old he was, but they have a significant age gap. Chris talks about how he was in Kuwait for 1 year in the Black Hawk unit, which also made me think that he's potentially Republican. Um, and Jess talked about how she's divorced from her ex because they had different ideas of what support looked like. And I think she was referring to the time where she was working in the hospital and hoping that when she came home, her husband would like support her and help uplift her, and she wasn't getting that, and she said he's a great guy, he's a great person, but I wasn't willing to stay in that relationship. So I'm like, okay, great, she has standards. And I was also wondering at what age they got married, because it's also really common in Ohio for people to just marry their high school sweethearts and like have 2 kids by the age of 23 and that be a goal. I know, because when I was 17, that was a goal. That was a goal. Thank God. That was, I realized later on in life that that's not a goal that I actually want. Next couple. Actually, I'm sorry. After we see Chris and Jess chat with each other, we see a date with Chris and Bree, who refers to herself as Breezy. And I'm like, I don't know why the nicknames always give me the ick, but it just very much feels like Sparkle Megan. So this is Brie. I also thought that she looked a lot like one of the Spears sisters. She favors Jamie Lynn Spears to me. But Chris and Brie, Breezy, whoever pointed out, I think it was Tate's take that their couple's name would be Chris Breezy. I can never get over that. I can never not think about that. But okay, they connect and bond over doing hard things and having discipline. She talks about how she played softball, and he talks about how he does cold plunges. And for some reason, this really resonates with Bree because she ends up bringing it up later on in the season. Breezy goes on a date with Connor next, and she ends up really liking Connor, whose last name is Spees and felt like a very Ohio last name. I also noticed as I was going through the casting photos, in case you're just listening to the audio version of this, a lot of the Ohio men they love a khaki pant that's like not fitted well. I'm so sorry, Connor, because you are nice and I'm feeling for you in your situation. And either like a bomber jacket, some sort of navy, and like that olive green color. If Ohio was to have a uniform, this might be it. And you'll see what I mean when I pull up Jordan in just a few moments, because he has on a very similar outfit. It looks like him and Connor went shopping together. Oh my God, I'm going to be dying this whole episode. I've never done a podcast this early, and I'm still drinking my water. I'm still having my coffee. So please bear with me. I will try not to cough on camera or on the microphone. But Brie and Connor bond over the fact that she went to Michigan and that she was a Wolverine. And for some reason, Connor thinks that this was the hottest thing ever, which really gave me the ick, but also felt very Ohio and his reason. Oh, and hates OSU, which also felt very Ohio, this beef between Ohio University and Ohio State. But he was turned on over the fact that she went to Michigan. And what else? Oh, they both like skiing. And they're both of them, their favorite song is Mr. Brightside. This is just very white, very Ohio. Nothing that they said in this conversation shocked me. I see that Connor does have a sense of humor, especially in his next conversation with Emma. And maybe he wasn't trying to be funny, but it was just funny to me. His next date with Emma, I liked the two of them together initially. I think Connor was arguably one of the nicer guys that Emma was talking to, but she ends up talking about how she's in fashion, and Connor talks about how he sells dumpsters. And I don't know why, but that made him a little bit more attractive to me because I'm like, that's a very like humble job. And like also like Emma pointed out, we need waste management services. Without it, our world would definitely be filled with trash. But I don't know why, but like Connor just having such a, maybe it's the fact that it's just so normal. Like it's just so like not trying to be an influencer, normal. However, this is Love is Blind and everybody wants to come on for a reason. So let me choose my words carefully about Connor. Okay. So as Connor and Emma are on their date, she talks about how, and I'm not sure if she, based on my notes, this is my bad. You guys can let me know in the comments. I'm not sure if she tells this to Connor or if she tells this to us in the confessional, but she talks about the scars that she has on her arm and that dates usually notice that. So she feels good about this entire experience and removing that element from things and people really getting to know her. She's honest with every date that she has about not knowing if she wants to have kids. And I really hate to hear each one of her dates' responses. I always have a lot of people weigh in when I talk about the conversation of couples having kids. This happened on Married at First Sight. And it's like, yes, every couple should definitely discuss mutual goals that they have for their life. And as you're first starting to date somebody, if your goals don't align and if they want kids and you do, I agree. Don't compromise on that. But what I hate is like trying to talk women into having kids. And I hate that there's no like, is Steven really the only person on here who like doesn't see a wife? And I don't even believe him, by the way, because we'll get into Steven in just a few minutes. But Steven tries to say, as if he's so progressive in a confessional, women are not just baby makers. And like you can tell the guys from Ohio are big on procreating. Like they want to pick a wife who's going to have their babies. They always talk about that. I want you to have my baby. I want to see what my baby would look like. So, yeah, where was I going? Where was I going with this? You'll see me real time because I usually edit this stuff out. Basically, I don't like how they don't cast anybody who's truly okay with maybe not having kids or even just like being open with leaving the decision up to the wife or even like hearing her out. Like, why do you not want to have kids? The immediate response of every single person, I get being honest. You should be honest about your expectations and how you want your life to turn out. But every single person she went on a date with tried to convince her, one, that she would be a good mother when they don't know her, and two, that she should change her mind. Like they're basically like, "Well, I can't promise that I won't try to push you on that," or "I can't promise that I won't be disappointed." And it just infuriates me, to be honest. But anyways, Emma's date with Connor was way better than her date with Steven, which is who she goes on a date with next. And nobody, and I mean nobody, will convince me that as they're casting Steven and having conversations with him, that they didn't know that this guy was a problem because and two, here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if after they filmed the season and once they went into the editing process, if they found out some of the allegations against Steven and the footage that we're seeing sort of corroborates just like how shitty of a guy he is. The other part of me is wondering if the producers just hated Steven because of his personality, because he has an awful edit. And then, like, the realist in me knows that he's just a piece of shit. And, like, this is just genuinely how he comes across on camera. But it's just so on the nose, the conversations he has for being so pushy and recalling the first time that he had sex and what his virginity story was like. Like, putting that in just felt so coincidental with everything that was happening now. And it's like, so you guys knew he was a creep, right? Like, did you guys know that this was coming out? I can't help but feel that way. But he gave me the ick as soon as he came on the screen. He very much looks like a finance guy or somebody who would spike the punch bowl with roofies at a frat party. I'm sorry, that's what he looks like. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that he's ever done that. That's what he looks like to me. Okay. I would avoid him. But him and Emma start to talk, and he starts the conversation with saying that he's not going to get in too deep, which I thought was interesting because I'm like, okay, I guess, like, first of all, that's just kind of a weird thing to start with, like, "Oh, like, we're not gonna get deep." Like, "Okay, like, let me see if I can find filler conversation to have with you then." But then to follow that up by actually getting pretty deep or at least very invasive, and I think that Steven has a hard time distinguishing the difference between getting deep and making somebody uncomfortable and being invasive. And in case anybody's watching Tell Me Lies right now, parallel to Love Is Blind, there's always a Steven, right? Steven kind of seems like Steven in Tell Me Lies, where it almost like gives him pleasure to see a woman broken down. Like, I find it disturbing that during his conversations with Emma, he can pick up on the fact that she's upset, and he takes that as a moment to make it into a sexual conversation. I think that that takes a sick person to be able to think about sex as somebody is clearly upset, and for that to be where he tries to take the conversation to lighten her mood. At the very least, it's a lot of lack of awareness. But let's talk about the specifics of their conversations. So he says, we're not going to get too deep right away, but then ends up saying that he adopted his dog. And he's like, which is a good segue for me to ask, adopting dogs, adopting kids. What do you think about adopting kids? And I'm like, that's not a good segue either. You comparing adopting a dog with adopting a child is a problem. And it's very weird that you conflate the two. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in. Make sure to like the live so that other people know. Longtime listener, first time watching live. I'm so glad to have you here. Um, yeah, like that was a strange red flag to me immediately. Then he talks about how he plans to do the Big Brother program when he gets back. And even his reasoning behind this felt weird to me. The reason was because he felt like he had such a good role model and his father and his grandfather, and other people should be able to have that. And I'm so sorry, but considering the allegations that have come forward against you and just how you even conduct yourself on this show, let's take it like face level. Is that what it's called? Let's take it face value. You're you're not a good representation of how they've molded you to be a man. You have a very skewed perception of masculinity and how you are a man that like protects women. So I'm wondering what your grandparents taught you. And also, you shouldn't be around anybody in a mentor capacity. He then tells a story about his grandparents, and I think he's still talking to Emma at this point, and everything that Steven says, I think he watched in a movie and then adopted for his own life because it sounds good. Because I'm like, is there not a movie or is there not like a postcard that was shown of like two people, a guy and a girl during the war that like meet up to have a kiss or something? He's talking about his grandparents pointing at the clock and meet me here and they did and it was love at first sight. Everything he says sounds so exuberant and so fairy tale. It just doesn't sound realistic. But Emma is like kind of into the conversation because there's not very many great options, and she likes Connor and Steven. We next see Kia and Caban's conversation, and I'm excited to talk about this. Kia, first of all, she's stunning. I thought she was stunning from the moment I saw her casting photo. And I wanted to root, like, I really liked Caban at first, but Caban, you're too indecisive. And it was so like, I get the attraction between both Kia and Tyler. I too would probably fall in love with both of them. But if you really respect somebody, I think Kia even said this, like my husband or Tyler said this. One of them said, my husband wouldn't do this. I wouldn't be in this position right now. But let's just talk about their first date, right? Because this was a little bit of like a yellow flag, just because I've heard my girlfriends talk about this. They were talking about their favorite movies. And at first he says Interstellar, which, okay, fair. A lot of people love that movie. Then he was talking about how his favorite movie is Love and Basketball. And Kia's like, that's actually like one of the worst movies of all time and super traumatic. Him dunking on her at the end. And he was like, okay, yeah, I can agree that that movie's not great. And it always feels like every time a guy thinks that that's a love story, like, I don't know. It's just something to note, right? Meanwhile, Kia's favorite movie was Love Jones. So I I like a lot of things about Caban though. Okay. So we're on episode 1. I like how he credited his ex for teaching him to have better communication. And I like that he didn't speak negatively of her and said that she was a great person, just not his person. It's always concerning when a guy speaks about his ex as if she's the most craziest, vindictive person in the world. So I liked how he talked about his ex. He also said that Kia's a vibe and they could be best friends, but Tyler makes him more excited. And this is where we get into the weeds with Cavan because the way that he's indecisive, he can't decide. Like he cannot decide how he's feeling. Cavan goes on a date next with Tyler. Let me pull up Tyler because she's stunning. Ah, that's the wrong Tyler. Here we go. Tyler L. And I love all of Tyler's dresses, by the way. So in case you're not looking at it, she wore these pink dresses that just complement her skin tone so well multiple times during the season. And the length, the way it hugs her shape, she just looks fantastic. So Tyler and Caban go on a date. And as Caban said, Kia might be more of like a best friend vibe, but Tyler makes him excited to see. And when they go on a date, Cavan is basically saying, what do we do about our living situation? And I think that this is where he started to spiral a little bit. Okay. Because it sounds like he lives in Columbus and maybe she lives in Cincinnati. And in case you're not aware of like Ohio's surroundings, that would be about 3.5 hours from each other, I think. Like, I believe Cincinnati and Columbus are not that close, so it would be a commute for the two of them, which wouldn't be fun to do on, like, a weekly basis or, like, a couple times a week. But Tyler's like, "Listen, although very few people have reached the level that I have in my career, I would be willing to move for my husband because that's the priority. My number one priority is my husband. I don't want to leave my career, but I would." And she's obviously very like open to compromise. And I both loved and hated this. And because we know what happens, and I'm going to be referring to spoilers throughout this. So if you haven't seen all 6 episodes, just be aware of that. But she ends up removing herself from the situation and it ends up not being for her. And I'm so glad because that's a huge feat. Like where she's gotten in her career before the age of 30 as a Black woman in Ohio, and she can just be herself. I hope that she stays there and receives the attention that she deserves. Like the attention and the recognition that she deserves, all positive. Okay. But she was willing to move. And I do think that Cavan was like a little, I don't think he wanted her to do that. like, I think he felt like that would be a pretty big ask. I think he was appreciative of the fact that she would do it, but I think that he actually di I agree with whoever said that he seems like an empath. He seems like an empath. Like, I think that he was like, "Mm, that's great, but I wouldn't want her to do that." And it's like, Caban, you might have not should have gone on this show because this is from all over Ohio. So it might be a possibility that who you start to fall in love with is not going to be in the same city as you. Oh, I was starting to read, but he's very mellow, very sweet. So I like him. Next, we see Alex. Oh my God, Alex. I have a lot to say about Alex. If you missed the where I took a first look at the cast, I thought Alex was gonna be a problem. I thought he was gonna be a problem. I thought he was gonna be self-absorbed, but not nearly as self-absorbed as he is. So, Alex admits off the bat that he's probably missed out on women because the attraction just wasn't there when he met them. And Alex and Ashley talk about their looks with each other. They talk about how they would like to be, how he likes to be the little spoon. And their sense of humor is just so awkward. I could barely watch Alex and Ashley on screen with each other. And maybe I'm like thinking a few episodes ahead, but when we get to the scene where they have like all of these innuendos, which are frequently involved in their chats, some people are living for it. Maybe I'm a prude all of a sudden, but I'm like, ew. Like, it just makes me feel cringe because, like, yeah, enjoy the moment, but then you're gonna watch this back. Like, it just feels so awkward. Um, Looking through my notes. Okay, yeah, Alex and Ashley. Then we see Mike and Emma. And I guess we need to talk about them for a bit because that does end up becoming a thing. So Mike is 30 years old and him and Emma go on a date. Wait, 30? He kept saying he was 20. Okay, maybe he was 29 at the time of filming, but he's 29 at the time of filming. Emma's 27, and they connect and talk about what type of time frame they would like about kids. Mike, off the bat, again, another guy who's so pushy about having kids. He just kept pointing out like what's so beautiful about having a child, as if Emma's never thought about all of what the positives could be. It's like the fears or like some of the unknowns that are holding her back. I feel like they heard that she was unsure of if she wants to have kids. She doesn't know the medical history of her parents, and they thought, "Oh, that's not a good enough reason." Like, I feel like the men listened to decide if it was a good enough reason for them, and ultimately, I don't think any reason is. Like, this is gonna sound really hateful of me and, like, I just hate men, but I think that a lot of men think that birth is so unserious, that they're so committed to the idea of having a child that if you were to ask them, like even as they hear, this is the complications that could happen. Preeclampsia. It is possible that she could die during birth. Like the way that men always minimize that and reply with, it's what you were born to do. Your body was made to do this. Or do you know how many women give birth a day and everything's fine? Or they point out a woman with like even a smaller frame than yourself. Like if she can do it, you can do it. It always just feels so reductive and minimizing to me when they don't have to push out anything. They don't have to have any change to their body permanently for the rest of their life. So basically, every time someone has a conversation with Emma, I'm just going to be upfront about them having kids. It pisses me off. It just pisses me off. Childbirth is so dangerous, especially in the US. Thank you so much. Yes, it is. Like, and in Ohio, I'm going to need you to pause for a second, Mike. Like in Ohio as well. So Mike told her, like, I don't know if I could be okay with your lack of commitment to having a kid. Like, I can't promise that. And the end of their date was pretty awkward because Emma sort of like joked that she wasn't going to come back for a date the next day. And then she he made a joke like, you don't have to tell me what you're going to do or if you're going to show up tomorrow. I'll see you if I see you. And I get he was trying not to pressure her, but just so many of these people's interactions just doesn't feel organic. Oh my gosh, natural nay. I'm so glad you're in here. I honestly didn't realize how dangerous it was until my friend started having kids. Then I found out how many Black women and babies die. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for adding that. And this is a good time to plug. That is why I'm such a consistent supporter of the New Jersey Perinatal Health Equity Initiative, because the maternal health crisis for Black women in this country and then the death rates is unacceptable. And in New Jersey, especially, Black women are 10 times more likely to die than white women during birth. And it's dangerous, like the lack of awareness that people have around that. And to go back to why I support this organization, they try to make sure there are zero preventable maternal deaths for Black women. And they prioritize making sure that Black women have palliative care, that they can have a joyful pregnancy. So I donate to them as often as possible. But it's a crisis. It's a crisis in our country. And like as important as that is, and I don't want to take away from that conversation at all because it's significantly more risky for Black women to give birth. Giving birth for women at all is dangerous. As people say, it's the closest that we will ever be in our lives to life and death at the same time. And like when I heard that, I was like, oh, I didn't even know until recently when I talked to my best friend after her third birth. And I do have an issue where I pass out, unfortunately, when I talk about birth. And it's happened to me since I was a kid. So my best friend of 17 years knows this. And that's why she has to be a little sparing with some of the information, as supportive and present as I try to be during her pregnancies. But we had never talked about what an epidural was. I didn't know that an epidural was a needle as long as my pen, 6 inches long, that's put into your back that you have to be completely still for. And if you move, can result in paralysis, nerve damage, like even the epidural. And then people talk to you and they're like, oh, and by the way, once you get the epidural, you won't be able to push naturally with your muscles. It's just men hearing all of that and still saying, yeah, but our baby, me and you, what we would look like. What if I die? Like, I just can't help but think that. So that's my thoughts. That's my rant. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yes, thank you for adding that. My cousin to this day has back issues from it. Exactly. And my best friend has scoliosis. Who knew scoliosis could impact women even during their pregnancies? But if you have scoliosis, if you've suffered from a car accident, like that impacts how they're able to put the epidural in. Like there's no great way to give birth. And just to add, because we're in the state of Ohio, I have so much religious trauma from churches in Ohio when I was younger. And the way that they would talk about, like, they would really highlight the fact that birth is painful for a reason. God chose that as a punishment for Eve convincing Adam to eat the apple. And like, once I heard, and maybe this is where all of my issues stem from, but once I heard that, like, it could have been painless for us, and allegedly it was decided that it's not, I was like, completely turned off from it. And because we're in Ohio, a lot of people were getting that messaging. A lot of people were getting that messaging. So, anyways, Emma's between Mike, Steven, and Connor. Let's go back to Steven because Emma goes on another treacherous date with Steven. Steven. So, and I'd also like to add, just in case I missed this, Steven is the cast member who has sexual assault allegations against him. Storytime with Ricky covered this in a detailed and sensitive way to try to bring forward what all of the information is. So if if you are unaware of the extent of what the allegations are against Stephen, I'm not going to get into that right now on this live, but you can absolutely find more information simply by even just typing it in. You can find Alicia, who is the young woman who made the allegations, her TikTok, or you can go to Storytime with Ricky. But Stephen and Emma have a date, and he calls himself the sensitive sensei, which I wrote down in my notes just because Emma hated that. She was immediately icked out and she was like, ew, sensitive sensei. And he was like, yeah, I have a playlist on my pod. First of all, I'm so sorry. Is this a slur? Like, I probably should have looked that up before I just said that and covered that. But yeah. So, real time apologies if it is. But let me just look it up. So I'm not just sitting here like dense. Okay, it is not a slur. It says it, at least not according to this. It says it is a Japanese honorific term meaning teacher, instructor, or one who walks ahead in life. So I guess it would just be inappropriate for Stephen, a white man, to use that term to describe himself. He's not Asian. He's not speaking of himself honorifically. He probably doesn't even know what it means. So, okay, I get why she got the ick from that. So, his playlist was called Sensitive Sensei, and she was like, okay, yeah, that's really weird. And I think Steven said something like, maybe I'm incorrect, so let me know in the chat, but I think this is when Steven might have said something like, and that's drawing me to different conclusions. He says that to multiple times, and Emma tells him this, like, it's making me uncomfortable that you're trying to guess. And Steven's like, I'm not trying to make you guess. And the other thing that he does during their entirety of the conversations is interrupts her. And I hate this. I hate this. There's a difference between trying to assist someone you're speaking with in finding a word that they can't, especially when they ask you for help, and just assuming after 15 minutes of knowing her, mind you, that you know what she's thinking. Stop trying to finish her sentences. That's very weird. You are a white man. You are a man. You do not know what she's thinking. You do not know her experiences. And that seems to be a general theme for them the entire time. Something that's so funny to me about this season is out of I've tried to look for videos to see what people's thoughts are on Christine and Vic, and I can barely find any, and I think that's because people really aren't creating content about this couple, and I think it's because, like, number 1, we didn't see that much of them, and it was pretty sped up, their interactions we did see. Number 2, as of now, they're likable. Like, they're flying under the radar in terms of, like, I'm feeling pretty good about them. Initially, I wanted to not like this couple. Like, I was just sort of like, is Christine fetishizing him? What type of situation is this? And again, I'm a white woman, so I don't think that I should ever lead this conversation. But you know, let me know what you guys think in the chat. Seemingly, at least as they stated, she said, I don't want to date somebody who dates just, and I think what she was alluding to is I don't want to date somebody who just dates white women, and I'm not somebody who just dates black men or just dates white men. Like, I think she was saying that she wants to date someone who has pretty open preferences. That seemed genuine. It seems like they were having real conversations relating to each other. They connected over the fact that they both had misdemeanors in high school for smoking weed, that they've tried weed. It's really not for them. That's so Ohio. Like, first of all, for Vic, of course, Ohio cops, what is that called? Do like racial profiling. So it's unsurprising, unfortunately, that that happened to him. For Christine, it's also unsurprising because almost every person I know has a misdemeanor for weed in Ohio or for some sort of possession or has had something expunged from their record because the police are nefarious and assholes all around the country, right? But in Ohio, I can speak to the fact that they are. Natural Nay says, I loved them from the beginning. They seem locked in, but Netflix played the Jet 2 holiday song when they met. So that might be foreshadowing. Netflix's song choices all around. I'm like, is this to throw us off because, they're typically very on the nose and they're not even typically well-known songs. It's usually like, I love her, I'm walking away, it's the worst day of my life, as somebody's ending a relationship or something. So Vic and Christine, like I said, they both connect over that. Christine talks about her mom with like a lot of reflection and empathy that I thought was very kind and gracious. And she talks about how her mom's been through a lot of trauma, pause, but her mom's also traumatized a lot of people, her kids and grandkids being one of them. And it's hard to both try to have grace for the trauma that someone's been through and the cards that they're dealt with, and almost like, well, how were you supposed to end up? And then hold them accountable for the fact that you still harmed others who were vulnerable and could do nothing to fend for themselves. So you need to be accountable for that. I need a sip of coffee. While I take a sip of coffee, if anybody has any strong thoughts about any of the couples that I've done so far, please put so in the comments. And if you're listening to this later on audio, I'm just going to apologize ahead of time. There's going to be spots where I'm just paused and not talking. So feel free to fast forward a couple times. All I can say is at least it's not an ad. Right? At least it's not an ad. Should that be my slogan since I have no sponsors and no partners? Um, okay, yeah, Christine also recalls a story of her dad and when she was little and being in the back seat, and she talks about how her dad was driving and swerving over the road, and people noticed and they called the police and said, he has a child in his car, this is concerning, he's driving very dangerous. And once the police pulled her father over, he handed her his pill bottle in the back for her to hide. And I don't want to make like reductive statements, but again, this is so Ohio. Like this is so Ohio. Like this is Uh, that's all I'm gonna say. This is just so Ohio. Like, Ohio, West Virginia, like, places that have, like, issues with opioids and meth and substances. Like, this is a story that I heard all of the time in both of those states. So, we next see Vic and Christine. Okay, good. I'm still on Christine. Perfect. We see more of their conversations. And what I like about Vic is, first of all, I love Vic's voice. And then, second of all, I love the fact that he is very even keel. Nothing can make me feel more comfortable and let my guard down more than somebody who everybody gets angry at some point or another, right? But not everybody yells, screams, intimidates, chooses anger as a first reaction. And, like, unfortunately, a lot of the guys that I came across during college and high school, they're autopilot. Not my father. My father was a great representative of choosing love and kindness and respecting women and respecting his daughters and respecting his wife. But the people who I came across that didn't, it was so quick to anger. And they say that men ages 18 to 25, like 70 to 80% of them end up being abusive at some point, but it's just always refreshing for me to see somebody who's just like who laughs and who seems very gentle and who is understanding and isn't like looking for a gotcha moment and is a good listener. And for now, that's what I'm getting from Vic. Like, it was just the way that he listened to her and said, "Mm-hmm," like, you just want to love on your mom. It was so refreshing and thus attractive. Also, Vic is easily one of the most attractive men on the cast this season, if not the most attractive man on the cast. He ends up opening up and talking about a situation that he recalls from his childhood that was traumatic for him, where he ended up seeing his stepfather. It was like a DV situation where he saw his stepfather grab his mother's hair and close the door, and this feeling of helplessness that he had. as a child and as the only boy in the house, like the man of the house, that responsibility of like, "Oh, and I'm too little to do something about this." And he talks about going to his sister Deidre, and Deidre going on pounding on the door and saying, "Don't ever touch my mother again." And I thought that that was I like how Christine responded to this because my immediate thought was the women in his life are amazing. Like, and have cared for him and have protected him in a lot of ways that he seems to be very grateful for. And it's very mature and vulnerable to me for him to be able to say, like, I felt very weak in that situation and I didn't know what to do. And to be able to reflect on that as a moment that was like traumatic to him. Like, it's important to be able to, as we get older, recognize moments that shaped our life or that have imprinted some trauma on us. And I think that a lot of men struggle with that. So, again, I found that very refreshing. I cried when he read his poem. That poem, The Invisible Woman, I don't even care if producers helped him write it because every season I always think that producers help write all of the love notes and the gifts. I feel like you wrote it. I feel like you wrote it. I can't see you, but I see you. Tears, tears. I just thought that that was so beautiful. So, anyways, I'm liking them. I'm liking them. Um, Oh my god. Every time my notes say Steven and Emma, I'm, like, jolted because they're awful, okay? Steven and Emma go on another date. What I do sort of like about this, like, first of all, Steven shouldn't be casted, so he does not apply to this, but I like that we're sort of seeing, like, the same couples the first episode, getting a sense of familiarity, especially since they showed us so many couples this season. So we can like kind of learn their names and sort of learn their stories and then have some closure and move on to a next couple, or at least most of the closure. Stephen and Emma's next date started off really weird. And it was like he wanted to know what size ring she wore. And she's like, I don't know, figure it out. And I did cackle at that. Like I did cackle at her telling him to just figure it out. And I saw so many people being really critical of Emma online, and I don't get why. Like, there weren't really great guys for her to be dating in the pods. She didn't really have great options, right? Like, the great options seemingly that we have seen and that we're privy to watching are taken. So, her reactions, the way that I would have treated these men after hounding me about my decision to have kids or to not have kids or even my fears surrounding it and the pressure I felt, I would have been really mean to them ahead of time. And Steven's allegedly a predator. So I don't feel bad that she's mean to him in any moment of their conversations. And she wasn't even mean, but I thought it was hilarious. So Emma, okay, Steven, after that, he's like, okay, well, back to the adoption topic. And Emma ends up, because he says, I feel like you're very closed off from me. I feel like you're not sharing with me. You have this wall up, essentially pressuring her to share more about herself. So she does. And she talks about how she was adopted. And Steven interrupts her and he's like, oh my God, the perfect segue for you to tell me this was the other day when I was talking about adoption. And it's like, I love that she told him, actually, no, because my family is not just a fun fact to bring up. This is really personal to me. I love to hear her say that to him. But he's still stuck on, okay, well, are any of your siblings adopted? Like he wants to know more. And do you feel like you have this, you know, understanding of how kids feel that are adopted and like this calling that you should adopt a kid? Like he's basically trying to morally guilt her into why she should adopt a kid. And it's like she would have these realizations on her own. So he senses that she's getting upset talking about her family and he keeps interrupting her. So he says that he's going to get her out of the funk that she's in and ends up offering information that he's like, just to show you how willing I am to go deep about myself, I'll tell you about my first kiss. I hate someone that offers something I didn't ask for. No, I don't want to hear about your first kiss. Why? And again, the way that you sense, like she just opened up about something that you didn't know about yet. This is new information to you. And rather than process it and actually take a moment to be like, you know what? This is upsetting to her. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about what our life would look like, or let's just change gears. Let's talk about what TV shows we're missing watching. No, he goes to a sexual story. Like, and that jump I find concerning. And I think it was called the Dear Shandy podcast, talked about how this felt narcissistic. And again, that's why I want to draw the parallels to Steven from Tell Me Lies, because you getting turned on or hot and heavy as she's sitting there upset, like it's almost like you like seeing a woman upset and that's sexually pleasing to you. I find that really disturbing. I find that really disturbing, and again, I believe whatever was said about him, and these episodes prove that. But he tells a story about his first kiss and being in Barnes& and Nobles, which was next to the AMC, and having their headphones on, and then just looking at each other with braces and being like, "I like you," and kissing. Don't believe that at all. Do believe that you were in Barnes& and Nobles next to the AMC sharing a headphone, because that, again, is very Ohio, or maybe that's everybody's experience. But yeah, I could literally envision what he was saying as he was talking. But things are awkward and they're not always pretty. So your first kiss and then how you lost your virginity being this picturesque story, first of all, it's not moving, and I don't believe it. Like to be honest, if you were about to say, "Oh my god, like I for some reason in high school thought I had a chance with the hottest girl at school and I went in to try to kiss her, and actually as soon as I pecked her on the lips, she pushed me and said, 'You're disgusting. I hate you.'" Like maybe that would have been a little more interesting because it's kind of like embarrassing, but you trying to tell this story. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance, get me the fuck out of this date. That's what I would say. So she's like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, "Well, what's your first kiss story?" When I watched this, I'm like, my boyfriend was like, "This guy is so fucking weird. Like, this guy is so weird." He did not like him to begin with. But a lot of people don't have great first kiss stories. And his lack of awareness for that is telling. And especially because of the allegations against him, of course, he would never think that for a woman. But she's, talked about being adopted by a white family, but not wanting to say where she's adopted from. But you could assume that since you're in Ohio, Stephen, that like maybe she was different than like the majority of her classmates. So maybe it's not a positive story. And she says that it wasn't a positive story. I don't really want to even give it any light by talking about it. Nobody liked me, Stephen. Nobody liked me until college. I just found that so relatable because yeah, nobody liked me when I was younger. Nobody liked me until college. Like, let's not talk about the first kiss. And then that's not enough. He's like, "Okay, so you don't really want to talk about that, but you have to remember the first time you had sex. Like, you have to remember that. I'll tell you my story." And the way that he told this story again was concerning. Investigate him. I don't like it. Like, he's like referring to, mind you, to set the scene of where he talks about his virginity story, he acts like she just has to be familiar with the movie The Notebook so that she can understand just how picturesque it is. And that's not real to me. Having sex for the first time is awkward and it sometimes hurts. A lot of times it hurts. And there's smells that you're not used to, and there's sounds that you're not used to. And it's weird, and you don't know how to breathe or where to move your hands. And afterwards it's messy and you have to figure out how to clean it up. Like and that's if it's a consensual positive experience of like of general awkwardness. A lot of people are have that taken from them. And so just like like the inappropriateness of this entire conversation, and under the guise of this is supposed to bring her out of the funk and this is supposed to be a fun conversation to go into. No. No. And I'm so sorry, but this, I guess I could never be a reality TV producer, because I would come out and be like, "Get him the fuck out of here. Are we serious? Let's interrupt this conversation. This doesn't feel like a problem to you." And that would be the day that I lost my job. That would be the day that I lost my job. Because okay, now let's talk about his story. Allegedly, the girl that he was dating in high school looked at him and was like, "I'm just so grateful for you that you haven't pressured me." And he was like, and she was like, "So, let's do it. Let's have sex." And he was like, and it was so perfect. And then the day after that, we had sex everywhere, everywhere around the house. You're frying me because you're disgusting. You're despicable. I don't believe you. Like it was all concerning, and the way that he talked about the Notebook and Rachel McAdams just couldn't deny Ryan Gosling, and he laid her down on the hardwood floor. I'm so serious. Even without the allegations present, I would say investigate him. That's concerning. I don't think he knows what consent means. That's my opinion, just watching these scenes. And again, it just felt so on the nose for the allegations in real time that I'm like, either they knew he was a piece of shit, they knew about the allegations, they hated him, he just always acts like this, or they put this in here to sort of corroborate what was going to come out about him later. But very disturbing. Okay. And how does this conversation end? Oh, yeah. Emma's like, "Well, I've never seen the Notebook." So, and he was like, "Okay, well, that's crazy. We'll have to watch the Notebook." And she's like, "Well, actually, no, Steven, because nobody needs to tell me what to do. I don't need a model of what you think the thing is going to be like with us." And she breaks up with him, and Steven's such an asshole. He did this during the entire time. The reason he cut her off is because he doesn't think that she deserves the time and space to finish a thought. Like, he wants to give her 5 seconds to reply and 2 minutes for him to craft a reply and talk after her. So the way that he would sit there in the pod, so you can go back, and he's like, "Okay, get to the point. Get to the point." Like, he's so annoyed with her even as she's breaking up with him. He's like, "So you don't want me, right? So you think there's better options." Like, he just gets so frustrated with her, and I'm like, "You trying to act like you're a patient person and don't view women as baby makers, and like you should be mentoring in the Big Brother program." It's all just very weird. And after this date, Emma's broken because things ended weird with her and Steven, and she opened up, she did what he asked her to do, and then it ended up he was like, I hate that you're turning this on me. I feel like I didn't do anything. If you don't want to like me, then you just don't like me." And it's like, no, everything she said was valid, and the way that she went into the lodge and all the women screamed, I think, and the guys were like, "Oh," and he was like, "No, we're done. What the fuck?" I will give Netflix credit in saying I don't believe they knew about it because he's never been reported, but I do think they left his scenes in because it backs it up. They could have easily cut it out. I hope, and I think that that's a very generous way to look at it. I hope that that's it. I don't believe that they knew of the allegations. However, when they do casting and they come in their apartment and they do certain things, I think that they do get in touch with some people in the people's lives. And I would wonder if anybody brought it up to their attention, any of his exes, anybody that they spoke with. And if not, if nobody brought it up, I genuinely believe that the casting people or the therapists, listen, if I'm going to give them grace, I'm going to say that they told producers, "He's dangerous. Do not cast him. He'll give you what you want as far as he'll be an asshole on screen and he's reactive, but that guy's dangerous." Like, I don't believe that you can spend more than 20 minutes with Steven and not gain the fact that he's a bad guy because he seems so pushy. But I agree. I don't think that they had access to any sort of reports at that time. Should we go into episode 2? Oh, episode 1, I'm sorry, episode 1 ends after Emma comes back from her date. We see quick flashes of Vic's conversations with Christine, and the two of them get engaged. Of course, this is behind the wall. They haven't seen each other yet, but they get engaged. And I don't know if this is the first time that we've ever seen somebody engaged by the end of episode 1, but it felt like it to me. Exactly. They want problematic people because it makes good TV. Who are the people who are really reactive? Who are the people who make unhinged decisions? Well, oftentimes problematic people. I had no idea that I was going to talk for a full hour about episode 1 alone. So I want to hear in the comments really quick. Do you guys want to dive into episode 2? And if you want to dive into episode 2, I'm going to turn off my camera and mic for about 3 minutes to take a break, come back refreshed, and we can dive into it. But everybody, flood the comments, please, if you will. If you've just been listening on standby, if you're at your work computer, see if your boss isn't looking. And if you can take a second to just type if you want to go into episode 2. And ow! Has anybody ever pulled like their neck with just like a little movement? And I'll go from there. I believe Lauren and Cameron were engaged in the first episode. I think you're right. I think you're right because I did hear someone say if they get engaged in the first episode, they might end up being like the stars of the shows. Yes, go on for as long as possible. I enjoy the company. Okay, I'm getting one yes. Love that. Anybody else? I just want to hear from a couple more people to know if people will stay on. Yes, take a little break. Okay. If everybody would be so kind as to stay on, I'll be back. And we'll dive into episode 2. Like I said, just a few minutes. I'll be back. Can't wait to talk with you guys. Have I had this muted the whole time I was just talking to you guys? That's so infuriating. That's so infuriating. I think I have. I think I've been muted. So anyways, I'm back. I'm really excited to talk to all of you. I read out loud the message that said that it's 4:30 p.m. here, and I was dying to know where you are at. Hopefully everybody can hear me now. But I'm dying to know where you're tuning in from. I guessed London, but potentially not. Everybody, thanks for dealing with me with my audio issues. 4 years in the game. I've done it independent the entire time. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing, but I just try to keep doing it and hoping that it pays off. I'm so glad that I'm back now. And also, I said this while I was muted as well. I'm making tea because there's no way that I can talk for this long with my voice and not have tea. I also just and if you're listening audio, I just what do they call it? Did some morning gardening. So I'm going to need some tea, but that'll help me get through the second part of the episode. New fear unlocked in Love is Blind episode 2 is what I learned. I learned that I am going to be paranoid every time I reach for eye drops from here on out. I don't even have nail glue in my medicine cabinet, and I'm going to be paranoid about dropping nail glue in my eye instead of eye drops. The fact that that happened to that girl, and I'm sorry, I didn't write down her name. It might have been Alyssa, but yeah, that's crazy. Oh, and I'm in New Jersey. Don't worry, I'm in New Jersey. But yes, even when I'm there, yes, I have a medical card for sure. So I hope that never happens to me. I can't believe that happened to her. I would have been inconsolable. I would have been inconsolable if that happened. So Christine and Vic, okay, they finally meet together in person. And again, I think we pretty much know what most of the couples look like now. But because I was pulling up their pictures, I'll just pull her back up. So Christine and Vic, they meet together. It seems like they have chemistry. It also seems like, yeah, like they looked cute together. I couldn't believe how tall Christine was. And I know she was wearing really tall heels, but yeah, she was like the same height as Vic. And they looked really cute together. They looked at each other a lot. They were unable to stop looking at each other. Lots of kissing. The second proposal that he did seemed really sweet. Sometimes it's really awkward to watch the men repropose, and it's like, oh yeah, you really don't know her. When they split, Christine is in the confessional and she has a huge rash on her chest. So I'm like, ooh, she was stressed. That was a lot of emotions for Christine. Also, Emma, episode 2, wears a pair of boots that I need to know where they're from. Like I'm just throwing that out there. They're a pair of black boots. I need to know where they're from. For whatever reason, I was insistent on drawing them in my notes from multiple angles so that I didn't forget, but I really like her boots. Emma talks to Mike about her fears with having a child. And again, I'm not even going to go into this because I've talked about this a lot. He says that she sounds like she'd be a great mother. I would have liked to hear her say why. Why do you think I'd be a great mother? Because as often as the men are saying this, I'm going to need some substance behind that. I'm going to need to know why you think that. You don't know me. Like, what have I done so far that's given you the impression that I would be a good mother? And Connor says the same thing. Like, she goes from one date to the next, Emma, where men are telling her why she would be such a great mother. Because Connor, 32, he's like, you'd be a great mom because of what you went through. I'm like, would that make her a great mom? I have to grab my tea. My boyfriend watches my videos back and he's like, you can't do that. Like, you can't just get up in the middle of your video and just leave it on no video, no audio. I'm like, I can and I will because I don't have very many other options. So sorry guys, but I'm back. So yes, thank you for agreeing with me. Emma's clothes are fab. Connor's telling her she'll be a great mom because of what she went through. I know what he means, right? Like, I'm not going to try to nitpick at everything the guys say, but I disagree. Sometimes people's trauma makes them a great mom, and sometimes people's trauma makes them want to decide to not have to care for their children. And some people like have a lot of anxiety over potentially watching their children experience like a sliver of what they experienced. Like, he just doesn't really know what Emma's feeling. But oh yeah, I wrote in my notes, am I projecting? Emma says that she can picture her and Connor together, and her gut feelings says that he'll be the one. In my notes, I write that Teddy Swims goes on a date with Amber, and I think I must be referring to Jordan. Let's talk about Jordan. We're finally on to a different couple. Jordan, aka Teddy Swims, in my notes, was nervous about Amber not introducing her ex to her child for 3 years. And he tells that to the guys, and the guys try to reassure him of this. So far, I like Jordan. I think Jordan's nice. Him and Amber have a date where she says something like, oh, as long as you're not a 61-year-old nasty fat guy, then you'll be fine. And that comment was weird. And a lot of people keep bringing that up. And they're like, I don't know if Amber really likes Jordan. I don't know that. First of all, it did give fat phobic. Like, I'm like, why do you make that comment? To then later say that she loves husky guys, again, like talking about his weight. Here's the thing, and this might not be like appropriate for me to say either. So I'm willing for people to be like, that's inappropriate, and I'll take the criticism for that and be accountable. But like, you know, Jordan's not thin. Like Jordan's perfect for me. Like Jordan is like the perfect type of guy that I would want. He's has something to hold on to. He's not going to make me feel bad because his clothes are smaller than mine, which I absolutely hate. Like to each their own. Some people love a thin guy. I don't. I like something to hold. I like the warmth. I like I like how he is. I think it's perfect. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I think that I don't know if I'd use the term husky to describe him, but yeah, I think that he's like a bear. I think that he's a bear. Maybe you could say gentle giant. I have no idea. He looks tall and he's not thin, and I like both of those qualities. Him and Amber talk about how when she was younger, she was made fun of a lot. And Jordan relates to this because his teachers called him a stupid kid when he was in Ohio, and they sort of connect over this. And that, again, I'm going to make comments, is so Ohio. I had teachers outright tell me that I was stupid when I was younger. Like, you're stupid. And like, just, like, comments that should never come from teachers to kids, and, like, making fun of you as a teacher, that happened to some of my siblings as well when they were younger, and we have a pretty big age gap, and when I tell stories about teachers in Ohio and some things that they've said or some things that they've did or how they've made fun of certain kids, people are always shocked, and so I've come to the conclusion that that's a very Ohio thing, and that's very unfortunate. And Jordan, I'm so sorry that your teacher said that to you because that's absolutely not okay. And I'm sorry to Amber too that kids made fun of her. She talks about being younger, she had bright red hair, and people made fun of that. And you can tell that Amber's not a natural blonde. And actually, I think the red hair would be beautiful on her, and I think she should bring it back. Amber also talks about how she has a kid. And Jordan says in his confessional that, like, initially having a kid was a deal breaker for him, but here he is interested in a woman who has a 7-year-old. And I again, like I said, I don't like when men try to convince women to have kids or not to have kids, but I do think that people should be clear about their expectations and their goals for life and what they're looking for. And if it was a deal breaker for Jordan about being involved in the capacity of like a parent situation or dating someone with kids, I don't think that he should have changed on that. Like, I think that that's going to be an issue for them down the road. And for any couple, like, I don't think it's like somebody saying, like, oh, she doesn't eat meat. Like, but I do. Like, no, it's like you weren't ready to date someone who has a kid and she has a 7-year-old child who she's going to be responsible for and who you might be responsible for as well. Right? If you're doing things correctly. So I don't like that. And I also feel bad. Again, I don't want to be harsh on the women because with how dating goes and like society's expectations from women, I can understand feeling like you have to do this, but you shouldn't, right? Like, I don't think that women should have to convince, or any parent. Like, this has happened on multiple seasons of Love is Blind. Like, you shouldn't have to convince somebody that your child is fun or easy or is different than other kids. Actually, we saw Huda do this a lot on Love Island. Like, that's what I'm thinking of. It was on Love Island, the way that she talked about her daughter, and her daughter's basically a mini me, and that's why she doesn't tell people right away. I think people should be very open about having kids right away, and I think that other people should be very open about, no, you don't need to try to convince me. It's just, she could be the greatest kid in the world, but it's still responsibilities that I'm not prepared for. Let's see what the comments are saying. I don't believe Love is Blind. It's fine not to want to date someone who looks like Jordan, but then don't go on this show. Agreed. Don't go on this show. Don't go on this show. If you have very specific standards and confines and parameters in which people are allowed to exist in, and that's the only thing that you date, you should not go on a show like Love is Blind. I also don't think Love is Blind. If you have a type, it's an even bigger risk to go on this show. Absolutely agreed. And they should be verifying this by looking at, and I heard allegedly they do, look at who people have dated, even hooked up with, photos of them allegedly. So if they're doing that, they have a pretty good idea of who people are interested in. Same. Same. Exactly. It's okay to have a type, but the whole point is to date against the type and be truly open. That's the point of Love is Blind. Yes. So we talked about Amber and Jordan. Oh, yeah. Jordan says that he also loves to cook, has a passion for cooking, but he also has to make money. Jordan just gets better and better to me. You like to cook? You want to cook? You want to cook every meal? Huh, fine. Fine. Like dishes, fine. I'll do them. If you're cooking every meal, I'll do the dishes. Not a big deal. Amber agrees that she is working because of the money. Of course, she likes to help people. She's an RN, but she also feels like she's more of an artsy person. And like I said, this is where I wrote my notes. Amber tells Jordan, as long as he's not a 60-year-old fat nasty, that she'll be fine with him. And he's like, don't worry, I'm a 61-year-old. Okay. He has a sense of humor. Oh my God, we're gonna have to talk about Cavan and Tyler. Cavan, Tyler, and Kia. The love triangle was both like entertaining to watch while also just being so frustrating because I'm like, just pick somebody. These are great women who could invest other time in other connections if you're not going to ultimately choose them. But Cavan and Tyler go on a date. She wants him to be her man. She talks about how one of her favorite sayings is to cry a river, build a bridge, and get over it. And I don't remember what this came up in regards to. I think it's maybe if she found out she wasn't able to have kids, that it would be something that she would cry over, be upset over, and then eventually have to get over. Tyler asks him outright. This is the first time that we kind of talk about politics like directly. And she asks him if there's anything that their kid could do that would distance themselves. She even says specifically sexuality wise, like that's what she's asking. And he says no. Like in short, his answer is no. Of course, he may envision his kids a certain way, but when it comes down to it, there's nothing that his kids could do that he wouldn't support them. What did you guys think about Cavan's answer? I'm looking at the comments really quick too. I don't think you can date against your type. You like what you like. Agree. Although I do think that someone's personality can grow on you, but I do think that there needs to be some sort of initial attraction. Um, I I believed Cavan. Like I thought that he was being genuine in his answer. That's what my thoughts are. Like I said, let me know in the comments as you guys are listening. He talks about how his mom almost died when he was 18 from a rare blood infection in his leg. And when he, first of all, that's so scary. I imagine that that caused him a lot of trauma because he talked about too, he was home that day from school. And if he wasn't home, then he wouldn't have been able to see that his mother was unwell. And then they wouldn't have been able to catch that. And then he would have lost his mother. Like that is just so traumatic and so jarring. And I think that ultimately it led to her having to have her leg amputated and just feeling like, why is this happening to the best person? And like, why is this happening to the most deserving woman who doesn't deserve to have anything happen to them? And my heart just went out to him. Like, this is just it's just sad. Like, it's just sad, and it makes me wonder too, like, did she have was her doctor missing something? Like, we hear Black women talk about, physicians just not listening, and we see, you can look at the statistics, like we see that there is a lapse in care for Black women. So I'm like, did her physician not listen to some complaints that she had? Did they just not care to investigate and figure out what was going on with her? Like, I can't help but wonder if part of that was it random? Was it something that her doctors weren't caring for? And if I'm wondering that, I'm sure Kavan is wondering that as well. And that would add to the anger that you feel about this situation. Like, not only did this happen to the best woman in the world, but also, could this have been prevented? Like, I think that that would make me feel very upset. After his date with, okay, yeah, Kavan, after his date with Tyler, he was going to go and end things with Kia. But he ended up deciding after his date with Kia to continue talking. And she's basically like, look, this is Love is Blind. I think you're trying to just like jump into and just pick one person right now. And we're supposed to be exploring. And to be fair, I guess she's right because it's only episode 2. So I'm assuming that this is pretty early on in their journey. However, little did we know that Kavan was going to take this to heart and take his time with trying to make a decision. And that would be even more infuriating because now, not you acting like the cards are all in your hand and like we're just supposed to both keep pursuing you and being lovely and going on dates with you while you just like struggle to make up your mind and reap the benefits of both of us being amazing. So, and I knew, by the way, like I wrote in my notes, he's going to end up alone. Like episode 3, I think I wrote, he's going to end up alone because he's taking too long to come to this decision. But at this moment, Kia was right. Don't just, rule me out. Like, let's see what's going on here. But again, you give an inch, you take a mile. Jordan ends up baking cookies for Amber with his mom's recipe, which she takes back to the lounge and all the women eat. And I thought that this was a really sweet gesture because, like I said, it's very attractive that he can cook. And if a man can cook, let's go. It also makes me feel like, and maybe wrongly so, because I'm sure there are tons of male chefs who are MAGA, but I'm like, maybe he doesn't believe so firmly in the gender roles. Like maybe he is open to just being a stay-at-home dad and doing all the load of the cooking and doesn't believe that his wife should be cooking and doing the bulk of the laundry and chores. But yeah, that's what I thought when I read that. He ends up proposing to Amber. The two of them get engaged. And Tyler talks to the girls while Kia's not there. And she's like, who's the side chick? Am I the side chick? Or is he the side? Is Kia the side chick? What's going on? Meanwhile, Kia and Kavan dive deeper into things, and he opens up to her about his mom. I think that I'm like trying to keep things in order because I know that at a certain point I started taking shorter notes because I realized I'm writing down every single interaction. But the interaction where Kia gives Kavan the watch and talks about her father and then talks about how every tick reminds her of how much time she has left and to be intentional with her time. But for him to remind him that every tick, you have a couple more ticks to figure out what you want to do. Like you don't have to just make a decision on the spot. I thought that that was really, really sweet. I thought that that was really, really sweet. Like I said, I too would probably fall in love with both of them, both Tyler and Kia, because both of them just have the most beautiful soul. And he didn't even know yet that they were stunning on the outside, but they are. Taking a sip of coffee. I wrote in my notes, Tyler removes herself from the equation and Cabana's upset. However, she ends up doing a redo at the end of the episode because she ends up coming back. And the final scene of episode 2 is the start of Jordan and Amber's reveal. So we don't get to see them yet, but it's the start of their reveal. I don't even take notes on their reveal. I'm going to be honest. Looks like they liked each other. That's pretty much it. Like that's the commentary I have on that. Now we're on episode 3. Okay, we need to talk about this. Hold on a second. Because now we're exploring a new couple. Maybe. Okay, there we go. Okay. I could have sworn that on all of the casting promotions that he went by just Devo, like Devo, and I remember being like, "Is that Italian?" Like, I wasn't too like, Devo, like, I wasn't really too sure what what his name was, right? And then we meet him, and his name is Devante, and because of some comments that Devante makes, I'm wondering and, like, I feel like Brittany is one of the only people to call him Devante, like, on his dates too. Maybe we haven't seen all of them, but yeah, I'm just wondering if he tried to go by Devo to try to separate himself and distance himself from his blackness because that seems to be something that we see him do as we watch him on screen. And you're struggling to hear me find my words because I think words are important and I know that I should not be the center of this conversation or giving my opinion on it as a white woman. So I'm trying to think about what's like the appropriate way to say this without overstepping. So Devante and Brittany go on a date, and he says that production pulled him out to let him know that his grandfather had passed. I felt really bad for him on this. Like, that's that's a lot to process. That's a lot to process while you're here in this experience. Also, it would be cool if they filmed the pods in the actual state in which they were in, but we know that they're in California, right? So they're in California. His family presumably is back home in Ohio. That's a lot to process. I wasn't sure at this point in the episode if he was just going to remove himself and go home. And I'm looking at the comments. Her redo annoyed me. Thank you. Okay. Natural Nay LA, he did because Devante is too black for him. Gia says, I feel bad for him. It would be hard to make a decision if I had two great guys. Oh, this is in reference to Cavan. Nah, it seems to be that's what he was doing. I have been in love with two people before. It was challenging. I'm sure because I did write in my notes at some point, like, can we have a throuple? Like, I don't even know. Like, I've never been in a situation or seen something. I saw previews for the movie with Elizabeth Olsen recently called Eternity, where she dies, she goes to heaven, and the love of her life before he died was there, and then her husband when she passed was there. And she has to make a decision between who she's going to live with for eternity, okay? And I didn't watch the movie yet, but I'm like, what a hell of a decision. Like that she and predicament that she's in. So I can't imagine being in love with two people. Continuing along. Alex and Ashley. Okay. Alex and Ashley. The blonde couple, people are saying the Barbie and Ken, Alex and Ashley. This was Alex, the guy who looked like a problem to me. And I don't think that we've shown Ashley yet. So let's bring her up. Okay. Ashley, 34 years old, blonde, blue eyes, tan. Okay. So Alex and Ashley talk about the career that could have been, the career that Alex could have had and was supposed to have in soccer, and how his injuries held him back, and also his reaction to his boys' lack of support when this happened. A couple things to say about this. I think that where was I at? Hold on. Oh, first of all, appreciate him talking about how the men in his life disappointed him because I think that that's probably very common for men. I think that a lot of men are what is it called? Friends with guys who don't really care about them and they don't have real conversations of substance. It's more about the interests that they have in common, their hobbies. They don't talk about real things. So, seeing that his boys didn't support him or stick around for him while he was injured or to support him and where he got for the draft, none of that is surprising. On top of that, I also thought to myself, wow, he must really not be friends with them because another thing guys do is like they always let their friends get away with it. So I thought it was interesting that he was talking about that on such a public scale. And I wonder if his friends will reach back out to him once they see these episodes. But he talks about how he wasn't supported. And then, like I said, oh, yeah, like I said, Tyler was planning to leave. Okay, let me go back to Tyler. And I'm so sorry, guys. Bear with me, especially if you're listening on audio. God love you. I'm so sorry. Maybe you want to go over to YouTube and just tune into the episode so that you can see what's going on. So Tyler said that she was going to leave. And then she goes, oh, no, let's do a redo. But before that, like, let's set the stage because she was going to leave because Kavan was giving her another speech about how great she was. And I agree with Tyler. If you're about to give me a speech while breaking up with me, I already know how great I am. Let's just cut right to it. Go around the bullshit. Let's just say, are you breaking up with me? Do you want to be with me? I know how great I am. You don't need to sweeten the deal or beat around the bush for my benefit. And essentially, as she leaves, production is like, well, wait a second. Did he say that he liked Kia more than you? And Tyler's like, well, no, but I made that decision for him. And then, hold on. I'm looking in my comments just to see what's going on. Yeah, I'm seeing Natural Nay. I'm seeing that you're having comments with Emerald for Jade. And I would just like to say, just to get a handle on things, I don't think that anybody living outside of America, and especially if you are not a Black American, you should not tell Black Americans how to perceive a situation or how to feel. Like, I'm not reading the entirety of the chat just because I was recapping, but as I'm looking through, it seems to be that there was a discrepancy. And I'll just say my personal opinion as the host of the podcast. Yeah, like if you're not a Black American, your input on a situation that Black Americans are addressing isn't really important. So that's what I'll say. But continuing along, the producer says to Tyler, okay, well, if you're going to make the decision for him, then that's what you always do, right? Like, didn't you tell us coming into this that you always will like leave something? And she's like, well, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, you didn't want to do that. You wanted to do things differently. So she comes back and she ends up having a conversation with Kavan. And I wasn't even sure if the two of them would get to have a conversation together. Like I was like, oh my God, is this going to happen right away? Is this going to be in the next episode? But they have a conversation right away. And I did laugh at everybody's reaction when she walked right back into the lounge and was like, redo. And everyone was like, oh my God, not a redo. What are we doing here? That made me laugh. So Tyler goes and talks to Kavan and she's like, I need time for us to lock in, like without distractions. Like you'll be a great husband to whoever you marry, but the question is to who? She also apologizes to Kia because as she was on her way out, she said like you have a great guy, I know your guy, and it was just overstimulating. And I thought watching it that maybe Tyler would be like, oof, like in hindsight, I wish I didn't do that. Probably made that situation a little bit uncomfortable. So she apologized to Kia, and Kia, their reaction was just so genuine and so sweet. They hug it out together. I thought that that was very gracious. I thought Kia was very gracious to Tyler, and I think that the two of them have just been so respectful to each other in this very weird situation where they're clearly dating the same person and they don't want to divulge too much into it the entire time. So, like I said, Tyler apologized, Kia accepts her apology, and they hug it out. Breezy is talking about how she would like to mix and match guys' personalities, but Connor has been her number one. Meanwhile, Chris and Bree go on a date that I fast forward through because, to be honest, Bree, make a decision. Make a decision. Like, it's just, too much. Like, I can't have more than one love triangle. Like, there should be a limit. One love triangle, that's my max. And I'm most interested in what's going on with Kavan, Tyler, and Kia. And because of that, I'm not interested in what's happening between Chris, Breezy, and Connor. So I fast forward between them and Chris, the short man. Like, why do short men just have like so much audacity? Chris is stuck between Jessica, the internist, the disease physician, and Breezy. Was he thrown off by Jess being 38? That's what I want to ask you guys. Because he claims that, like, if he doesn't have kids, like, that's not that big of a deal, and that his mom, in fact, told him that he needs to find somebody who doesn't want to have kids because that's not something that is a priority for him. So I'm like, is he thrown off by Jess's age? And if so, I guess it doesn't have to do entirely with his desire to have kids, but I'm just wondering, like, is it really about that? Is he more like insecure over himself? Yes, the season has tons of love triangles, but I don't really pay attention to them. Like, in my notes at this point, Chris and Jess, it's too much. Chris, Jess, and Bree, make up your mind. I'm not invested. I fast forwarded through them again. I also wrote in my notes the very next thing. I'm also not invested in Alex and Ashley. Alex proposes to Ashley, blah, 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 blah. Okay. The two of them are very focused on the innuendos in their relationships, and they're focused on their looks. Like, that's what they talk about. That's what they talk about the most, is their looks. Emma and Connor end up having a conversation about how physical attraction can grow, especially once they have an established connections. Connor asks if she thinks that they would have cute kids. The Ohio men. The Ohio men are trying to kill me. Like, the amount of times that they have to talk about kids. They have to talk about kids. This was a red flag. Connor, where are you at? I'm about to pull up your picture. You have to be next. This is where I need to know Connor's politics. Connor, I think, is talking to Bree. And when he talks to Breezy, I ultimately think he picks Breezy because they have the similar values as each other. However, I think that Breezy and Chris have similar values too, because I don't think that you're the outlier or the odd man out if you're a Republican. I think that, like, a pretty decent amount of this cast is probably Republican. But Connor is talking with Bree and says that, like, normal is underrated and traditional values, blah, blah, blah. Between that and his startling profanity, which I'm surprised I haven't mentioned yet, but Connor's startling profanity that he uses is so white man, so Midwest white man. That fucking sucks. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, the sharp, the hard, the like, I wish you could see my face if you're listening audio, but, like, the way that it just comes out like a knife, like daggers, like, fuck. Like, the way that white men from Ohio swear is like, it's almost like a paper clip to the eardrum, but it's startling. And so between that, and it just sounds like he doesn't know how to cuss well, right? Like, it's just a little like, is that your first time using that in a sentence? And that's how he comes across to me. So between the traditional values and the khaki pants, and he's got a little bit of the Billie Eilish going on. You know, if you know. If you're not watching, that was so fucking funny. I'm hilarious. So yeah. Um, oh yeah, Breezy tells Connor, yeah, Chris Breezy, it's absolutely sending me. I cannot get over that. But Connor and Bree, they decide that they're gonna make a plan. They know what they have to do, aka they both have to break up with the other parties. Alex and Ashley are finally ready to meet, and he keeps talking. Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm remembering this. Alex, before he meets Ashley, keeps talking about his human shell. And if him being so egotistical wasn't odd enough, he talks like an alien, like he's extraterrestrial. Like he's like, the shell that I have, I think she's going to love my shell. But like, the underneath of that shell matters as well. And I'm like, no normal human being refers to their appearance as like their shell. Like I guess I've sort of heard that amongst the yoga community. Like people talk about their a shell for their soul, but that's not what I'm getting from him. It feels very Begonia, very Emma Stone. What do you mean your shell? But, anyways, they meet up. They're obsessed with each other. It literally felt like those old Disney movies with the jock and the cheerleader who had PDA up the wazoo. I'm thinking back to Princess Diaries. That's what it felt like. I'm Lana Anna Montana. Like, that's the vibe that the two of them give me. Everything is about sex, everything is about looks. At some point, Alex does say that he is typically more interested in dark features and brunettes. But that being said, they're very shallow. That's a great thank you. They're very shallow, and that's what the two of them care about the most as they're having these conversation. Breezy breaks up with Chris, Breezy break up from each other to focus on her other connection. And he claims that I was just about to do the same thing. Oh my God, Breezy. I can't believe you're breaking up with me because I was about to do the same thing. I made a joke that Chris's ears was so big that he probably heard Bree say she was going to break up with him. I know that that's not nice, but because Chris seems MAGA, I'll apologize later and make my jokes now. So, anyways, he acts like he was about to do the same thing. Like, oh my God, perfect, because I know that Jess is the one for me. And then I find the way that they make this decision embarrassing to fast forward a few episodes later. Like, you guys did all that. Like, oh yeah. He acts like he's so dead set on Jessica, and she's like, Connor's the one for me. And then just a few episodes later, he's like, hey, I don't think Connor's man enough for you. Ew. Someone in my comments said, and who are you? Exactly. Who are you? So Connor broke up with Emma, and he was her number one. So she's crying over this and upset. And I'm like, oh my God, could they have brought some legitimate like options on for Emma, because this isn't it to watch this happen to her. Chris goes and proposes to Jess, and she says yes. And Devontae and Brittany are connecting. That's what I have written for the start of episode 4, which is where we are now. We've gone through 4 episodes in an hour and 49 minutes. Mike and Emma go on a date. Oh yeah. And I appreciated this from the sense that, like, yeah, sometimes we do lie. Sometimes we do lie. And Mike and Emma go on a date, and she's like, "Listen, my number 2 just ended things with me. I'll be honest, it wasn't mutual, like he did make that decision." But I like the fact that she says her number 2 because yeah, why? Like what at that moment, why be honest about it? Right? Like she's obviously still wanting to see her options through. This is Love is Blind. It's not like they were completely committed and what is it called? What is that called? Who cares? It's not like they were locked in and exclusive with each other. Okay? Um I'm trying to keep up with the chat while also trying to look in my notes, while also trying to balance my ADHD. Checking back in, Begonia was a great movie. Yes, it was. Ohio is single-handedly keeping the khaki industry in business. Yes, it is. Do I think Jessica is MAGA? I get the vibe that Jessica is not MAGA, that she's left-leaning, and I actually think that that's going to be one of the issues between her and Chris. I think that once they get their phones back, because she made a comment about how she doesn't want to get her phone back, she doesn't want to see the news. I think that to me seems like she's left leaning and she's seeing just how horrible the world is on a daily basis. And it's overstimulating to her at times, especially as she works in healthcare. And I think that she will quickly see that when Chris gets his phone back, whether she goes to his Instagram and checks his followers and see that he follows Trump, like I think that they're going to have a disagreement over their politics. This is Ohio. There's no way that we're not going to, there's going to be somebody who has like a political discrepancy at some point in this season. There's no way. So where are we at now? Okay, yeah. So Emma told Mike that her number 2 ended it. And again, at least she was honest about the fact that it wasn't mutual. I feel like that was the thing to be honest about the most. Connor and Breezy get engaged. And Tyler tells, why did I write Amber? Oh, no. Tyler tells Christine that her and Vic are meant to be. They come from similar situations, unlike Dynasty, who he was also apparently dating, who didn't feel like she had that in common. My MAGA bells didn't go off for him. We'll have to see. We'll see about Chris, natural nay, and we'll come back to convene about that. Okay, yes, this is when Kia, episode 4, got Kavanagh a watch to honor her father. And by the way, the watch was stunning. The watch was stunning. I was like, is that a Rolex? Like, it was like, okay, she was able to give him that gift. And that's when Kavan was like, listen, my name's Kavan. I'm from Columbus. I have a beat up Chevy Cruze and I live in a 1-bedroom. And I'm feeling for him because I think that I don't know if he's like ready for marriage, but I think he was an intentional guy. Like, I think Kavan came on, was really torn between these 2 women. I don't feel like he really like flexed, like, oh, like I have 2. Like, I don't feel like that was really his vibe throughout it. And I think that he's just a guy who might have not expected this to happen. We know that a lot of the seasons, the men don't just apply for this show, they cast them. So, yeah, I think maybe he was like, okay, sure. But I might just be giving him too much credit. So, what happens next? Okay, Kavan gets Kia a basketball. She goes back with the basketball, plays with it a little bit. Tyler sees this and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to need clarity like ASAP, because if I don't get any clarity, then I'm not coming back tomorrow. Chris and Jessica meet. I take no notes on it. Like, I don't take any notes on them meeting. At this point, we've seen how many couples meet up with each other. I felt like I don't really care. I'm not going to sit here and watch it all. And like, unless it was like last season with Casey and Patrick, where afterwards she went to production like upset, like it's kind of hard to get anything from them meeting each other for the most part. It's pretty hard to know what either of them are thinking. So skipped fast forward right through it. This is what I learned. I started skipping too much because I missed all of Brittany and Devontae's conversations. I missed their conversations. I missed him saying the colorist comment that he made. I missed that. So I was confused when he meets up with her. And at first they have a kiss and everything, but then all of a sudden he was completely not interested, even as she's offering to end her celibacy so that they can have sex. Like that all threw me off, and I wasn't expecting that because I missed the context of them talking in the pods. I missed him saying, I think he made I know he made some comment to the effect that he likes white women. Like I know that he made the effect to something like that. So yeah, you're weird for that. Um, that's that. That's that. Oh yes, thank you. Thank you. He thought she was white because of her voice. That's the comment that I missed and didn't hear and then saw on social media after. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is why I shouldn't skip forward through every couple's. So yeah, when you compile that with how he then treats Brittany once he meets her, and even just the fact that he said that, very weird. And then when she talked about herself, I did hear this part. I did hear him sort of accept like her Colombian side and Liliana. Like I heard that, but it didn't seem to be any acknowledgement of the fact that she said that she's half Black, half Colombian. Like that wasn't something that he talked about with her. At least that I saw, because again, I missed a good majority of their conversations. Emma and Mike have their gift date, which is what we watched a couple of the other couples have. And she ends up bringing letters that her mom wrote her when they were younger, like the family letters that she would send out every year, which is to give him a glimpse into what Emma's life is like and the love that she was raised with. Meanwhile, Connor and Breezy meet up for their first reveal. And again, I didn't take any notes on it. I'm like, do you think they were happy? I don't know if they were happy. I guess I'm going to have to retract saying that I expect Love is Blind to show us more couples because, again, what I meant by that is don't dangle diversity and then not show people's journeys. But there's so many couples this season that I feel overwhelmed. Like I feel very overwhelmed by how many couples we have. So Connor and Breezy, we know this though. I didn't take notes for episode 5 and 6, so let's talk about this. Breezy ends up just like not interested in Connor. She ends up not interested in him. She wasn't attracted to him when she saw him. For some reason, she is attracted to short Chris, and the two of them have conversations. When all of the couples meet up for their pool parties, Breezy is pissed that everybody is just existing and everybody's just talking and being cordial and playing nice when she's like, hello, we all dated each other. Isn't this weird? We should perhaps talk about our relationships. Like, let's just not act like we meant nothing to each other. And Connor didn't have that experience. Connor was like, I actually didn't think of that. Like, I felt, pretty satisfied by it. I'm here for you. So that's sort of interesting that you're feeling that way. And we see Breezy wants to talk to Chris like 1, 2, 3 times. She wants to be around him. I'm like, you guys are embarrassing. On the flip side, at this party, Alex talks to Brittany and he's basically like, yeah, I don't know if I'm that attracted to Ashley. We have great sexual chemistry, but like, that's it. That's it. That's literally it. Like, we don't talk about anything else except having sex or how we look or my brown eyes and her blue eyes. Like, that's all we talk about with each other. And plus, I'm attracted to darker features and she's not typically my type. Brittany was very respectful in this conversation, but it was clear to me that Alex is interested in Brittany because, though, Alex just used Ashley, and because of the way that he thinks of himself so highly, I don't trust Alex. I don't want to see Brittany and Alex. I don't want to see Devontae and Brittany. I want to see Brittany have somebody who knows that she's a baddie because she is stunning. I forget who I wrote. Like, there was somebody who, as soon as I saw her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she reminds me so much of her. Like, she favors this actress, but I cannot think of it. But Brittany is stunning, stunning. And yes, Alex isn't feeling Ashley despite having sex with her, like despite them hooking up and stuff. And to that effect, hate to see that. Hate to see that for them. Jordan, virtually every couple has sex, right? Jordan with his CPAP machine and Amber have sex. Some people are focused in on the fact that at the pool party, Jordan was more intentional about spending time with Amber. And she was like, okay, well, anyways, let's go hang out with our friends. I think Amber is just strange. Like, I think Amber's strange and I think she's insecure. And I think that the two things compiled together, I don't know if she knows how to be, sort of. So I kind of feel like that's happening. Anybody else that I want to make a comment about? We barely see anything of Vic and Christine. I literally forgot about them. Um, Alex and Ashley, Devontae and Brittany, Emma. Did Emma pair up with somebody? Emma and Mike. I still don't like Mike because he's trying to tell her why she should be a mother. And then, is there anybody else? Caban ended up alone. Those are my thoughts. That's my thoughts. I think that I'm done. I think I ran out of steam after almost, oh my God, I did a full 2-hour live. Thank you to every person who hopped on here. I want to hear all of your thoughts. I want to hear them in the comments. Thank you to every person for sitting with me for 2 hours, sharing your thoughts, and just putting up with me. I hope everybody has a great Friday. Again, like this video, make sure you share with a friend, and leave all of your thoughts for me in the comments so I can tune in. Again, every person who left me comments, thank you so much. It makes it so much more fun to go live. Have a great day. Bye.